British Aerospace Hawk, T Mark 1A, wingspan 9.39 meters, length 11.85 meters, height 4 meters, maximum speed over 600 miles per hour. Power plant, Rolls-Royce Adore. They painted the bodywork red and highlighted an arrow on the underside. A majestic red bird of steel, under control yet in free flight. A symmetrical formation, 9 machines and men as one. Choreographed and disciplined, elegant, daring and precise. Requiring a sixth sense to produce the world's finest flying elite. The Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, Red Arrows.
Simon, 6-7.
Cyprus, and the Red Arrows are here for their annual 3-week training detachment, the completion of their winter training program. Before a typical sortie, the team engineers carefully prepare the aircraft, and an exact amount of fuel is loaded. Last-minute safety checks are made. Nothing is left to chance. Everything has to be in perfect working order. For debriefing purposes, the Red Arrows always film their displays from the ground. On this occasion, however, extra cameras have been mounted inside the cockpit and on the aircraft to bring you a bird's-eye view. By the time the Red Arrows start training here, the formation has worked up to 9 aircraft. Team manager, squadron leader Andy Stewart.
3 new pilots join the team each year, and their training begins in earnest in October. They will have flown in the rear seat behind an experienced team pilot for the last month of the previous display season. But the initial weeks are spent converting to the Hawk, and then looping and rolling in small formations over Scampton Airfield. As their proficiency grows, so the height is lowered and the formation size increased. Meanwhile, deep servicing of the aircraft is carried out in rotation so that the pilots' training sorties can progress uninterrupted up to 3 times a day, 5 days a week. By early February, all of the aircraft are available and the pilots are ready to fly 9 aircraft formations. The team can now concentrate on developing a display sequence. Several new ideas will have been tried during the winter, some more successful than others. The work-up training culminates with a detachment to the RAF base in Cyprus, where fine weather guarantees continuity of flying and allows the final polish to be put on the display. The full Red Arrows display sequence, flown in good weather, demonstrates 22 different formation manoeuvres, all of which you will now see in this program as you've never seen them before. Now, the aircraft flown today, and indeed for the last 10 years by the Red Arrows, is the British Aerospace Hawk. Powered by a single Rolls-Royce Ador engine, this aircraft provides an ideal platform for formation aerobatics and for advanced flying and tactical training. Whilst the aircraft is capable of flying at some 600 miles an hour and pulling up to 8G, formation manoeuvring that you're watching is being flown at about 350 miles an hour, with the pilots exerting considerably more modest levels of G throughout most of the display. Now, the exceptions to this are Red 6 and 7, a synchronised pair. We'll be seeing a little more of them later on. Now, one of the most spectacular formations to watch from the ground is the crossing manoeuvre that we call the Goose. And for this, the main section of 7 aircraft are positioning, having slowed right down to less than 200 miles an hour and lowered their undercarriage as we see here. And shortly, from behind us as we're watching the 7 aircraft, the synchro pair, Red 6 and 7, are going to fly up underneath the main section and through their trailing smoke. You won't have seen it from this angle before.
Before each display, the pilots are thoroughly briefed by the team leader on weather conditions and the formations they should concentrate on.
Points from the last fully. Big 9 to diamond was good. Diamond bend. The flanker change was much better. Flanker itself, 8, a bit long. Yep. Yeah, flanker Apollo was good. Diamond, wine glass, 2's going to slow it down slightly. Tango, tango.
No display is ever 100% perfect. There's always room for improvement.
But it was going around quite nicely. 2, don't go too deep on, shallow rather, on the change into diamond. Big Vixen was nice. Leader's benefit, last leader's benefit on the left was too tight and the right was too slack. So let's work hard at this.
It's a chance to think about things in that never-ending pursuit of perfection, which is indeed the hallmark of the Red Arrow's success. Their motto, éclat, excellence.
Joining in for box Vixen, Vixen break, standard Whipperdale, and we'll do a crowd right landing. Landing order is
6, 4,
8, 1,
5, 7, 3.
Teamwork is absolutely vital. There are no prima donnas here. It's all about working closely together in the air and on the ground. Discipline and precision starts before takeoff. Everything is meticulously planned. The 9 display pilots and the flying team manager have varying backgrounds and are a cross-section of the RAF's fast jet aircrew. Between them, they have amassed some 24,000 flying hours, and most have served in the RAF for at least 10 years. The tour on the Red Arrows is normally 3 years, after which the pilots return to the front line or instructional duties. The changing of 3 pilots each winter is the best compromise between the injection of new blood and maintaining a stable, experienced foundation on which to build the next year's display. It's a small world inside the cockpit. Everything in here is done by eyeball, not computer. A large number of the Royal Air Force Hawks, including those flown by the Red Arrows, have been modified to T Mark 1A standards. These enable them to carry Sidewinder air-to-air missiles, as well as the central gun pod for UK air defense duties. The Red Arrows couldn't function without an impressive backup. The travelling ground crew, usually referred to as First Line, are 26 dedicated and skilled tradesmen. They are each responsible for specific engineering tasks. 9 of the tradesmen and the engineering officer are in the circus, which means they each fly as a passenger in the Hawk on transit flights. Each circus member works with the same pilot throughout the season and looks after the aircraft's flight servicing as well as the preparation of the pilot's flying kit. Equally as important as the circus are the remainder of the First Line, who travel in the support Hercules or by road transport. They provide the specialist support needed to rectify any minor faults that occur en route or during the display, and it is at these times that they really come into their own. Impressive-looking aircraft, aren't they? It's interesting to note that the British Aerospace Hawk T Mark I first entered service with the Royal Air Force in 1976 and re-equipped the Royal Air Force aerobatic team in 1980. Lining up for takeoff, and through the heat haze, there's a glimpse of that Hercules, the workhorse of the Red Arrow's support system.
Display takeoff coming right. 6, 4 have the radio. 4. Swipe left one go. Power, parking brakes. Red, growling, loud.
It's time to take to the skies, back to Squadron Leader Andy Stewart.
For the display takeoff, the team gets airborne in 3 separate sections. Reds 1, 2 and 3 use a little bit less power than 4 and 5, quickly catch them up as we can see here, and together they form the front 5 aircraft of the diamond shape. And the a rear section of 4, here led by Red 6, then join up to form, within a matter of seconds, a classic Diamond 9 shape, the best known of the Red Arrows formations.
Chico, Everett, go. Turn.
Let's see that join up of the rear 4 aircraft now, in a rearward facing view from the leader's aircraft.
All aboard. Slug off. Go.
Now, by the time you see the Red Arrows at some displays, the team may well have transited for up to 80 miles at low level, and the responsibility for getting the team there, to the second, falls squarely on the shoulders of the team leader. But now as the team arrives and pulls up to form the classic diamond shape, you might like to know, for reference while I'm talking about each pilot, their positions within the formations are numbered such that the odd call signs fly on the leader's left, whilst the even numbers are always on his right. In the middle, however, immediately behind the leader, you can see Red 6 and 7, who will form the synchronised pair during the second half of the display. But leading from the front is Squadron Leader Tim Miller. Now in his third season as Squadron Commander and Team Leader, Tim was himself a wingman on the Red Arrows for 3 years between 1981 and 1983, and he's thus one of the select few to have served on the team for 2 tours. Flying on the leader's immediate right is Red 2, Flight Lieutenant Tony Smith. A qualified weapons instructor on the Hawk, this is Tony's first year with the team. And on the leader's immediate left is Red 3, Flight Lieutenant Paul Buck Rogers. This is also Buck's first season of display flying, having previously been a staff instructor with the Central Flying School Hawk Squadron. The team now rolls down towards us in Feathered Arrow. Flying on the outside right of this shape is Red 4, Flight Lieutenant Al Hoy, now in his second year on the Red Arrows. In honour of this, the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, the Red Arrows pay a special tribute to fighter pilots of all ages by representing the shape of the latest British aircraft to re-equip RAF Air Defence squadrons. As they pull up there with blue smoke on for a loop down the display line, this is the team's interpretation of Tornado.
Coming left. Now. Slug off. Go. Slug on. Go.
In honour of our tour behind the Iron Curtain to the Soviet Union, we renamed this shape as the Flanker, the NATO code name for the Soviet Sukhoi 27 aircraft that so impressed Western observers at the Paris Air Show.
And pulling up.
As the team pulls up and changes from Flanker to Apollo formation, so named after the American spacecraft, the pilot on the extreme left of this shape is Red 5, Squadron Leader Dominic Riley. Dominic used to fly a fighter aircraft that preceded both the Soviet Flanker and the British Tornado by many years, the American Phantom. Reds 4 and 5 have just reformed the diamond before the formation shape changes once more, with 8 and 9 sliding towards the back in anticipation of performing an extremely difficult manoeuvre that was new in this year's sequence. Now, this is something special and indeed, as I say, very difficult for the pilots to fly, with 5 aircraft in line abreast and 5 in line astern. So pulling up now shortly to roll, this is Tango.
Pulling up. Spot on, go. And rolling.
The pilots right down at the back end of that Tango shape are Reds 8 and 9. And Red 8 is Flight Lieutenant Andy Wyatt, who's the third new team member for this year. Now, Andy used to fly the Lightning fighter before himself becoming a flying instructor. From the longest, the team changes shape into the broadest that it flies. Indeed, it's 7 aircraft wide, with numbers 6 and 7 tucked in at the back. This is an impressive manoeuvre that always makes a spectacular photograph at air displays. This is Big Vixen. Flying on the extreme left of this formation is Red 9, Flight Lieutenant Martin Cliff. Martin flew the Harrier before joining the team last year. We now reach the point in the display where the synchro pair detach from the main formation to begin their spectacular opposition manoeuvres. Red 6 and 7 can now be seen pulling sharply into the vertical, whilst the main section climbs in leader's benefit. And having pulled up to over 4,000 feet, the synchro pair are now splitting from each other whilst they describe the outline of a heart with the white smoke. Meanwhile, the main section, now in Big 7 formation, fly right down through the middle before fanning out in the cascade. You've seen the first half of the display from the outside, so now let's get a pilot's viewpoint. We start joining Tim Miller as he pulls up to form the diamond at the beginning of the display. The 6 and 7 move from outside the Big 9 shape. Here they come now into the stem of the diamond. 6 is closest to us with 7 just behind. Fred is the affectionate name by which we know the feathered arrow shape. Shortly we're going to ride with Red 9 Martin Cliff at the back on the left-hand side of this formation. As we pull up now in Tornado, looking backwards from Tim Miller's aircraft, you can see the runway of Royal Air Force Akrotiri disappearing beneath the aircraft. We're joining now Red 4, Al Hoy, on the outside right of Tornado. From Apollo, we change to wineglass formation, and we can see 8 and 9 there, dropping back in anticipation of performing the tango roll. As 8 and 9 adopt the stem, the camera moves to the number 9 slot. But for the roll, we join Al Hoy once again, on the outside right of the 5 aircraft in line abreast. From Tango to Big Vixen, and 6 and 7 moving there into positions astern the numbers 2 and 3. Now from Big Vixen to 9 Arrow, which puts 6 and 7 in the position from which they'll leave the main section and hence start the second half of our display. Watch there as 6 and 7 pull up from behind Tim Miller, and once again. As we come over the top of this loop, look for the smoke of the heart left by the synchro pair. On the left-hand side of the formation now, ruddering away in the Cascade. But now for the second half of the display, we're back on the outside again. The synchro pair come towards each other for the hesitation 4-point roll. For their second cross, they're back down the display line again, but this time for the opposition barrel roll. Synchro clear the display line, the main section of 7 aircraft run in again. We now want to watch the 2 aircraft on either side of the leader. As the blue smoke comes on, Reds 2 and 3 are the first to pull up and away from the formation, thereby starting off the manoeuvre that we call the rollbacks. 4 and 5 now link up with red smoke on. And finally the manoeuvre is completed by 8 and 9 with the blue smoke again. All aircraft have now returned to their original positions within the formation by a certain amount of judicious shuffling up. If you enjoyed the rolling manoeuvres, the synchro pair have a new one this year that's guaranteed to catch your attention. As the main section of 7 depart, in come synchro again, and watch closely as they both roll upside down together. Leading the synchro pair this year is Flight Lieutenant Steve Johnson. Having flown the Harrier in Germany, Steve joined the team some 3 years ago. But now we're back to that stage of the formation that we saw right at the beginning of this film, the goose. Synchro clear through the smoke, the main section raises its undercarriage and starts a steep climb away, smoking our national colours and the colours indeed of the Royal Air Force aerobatic team. Meanwhile, the synchro pair are positioning in time for their shackle split. As they come towards each other for the series of double rolls, Red 7 is Synchro 2 this year, and he's Flight Lieutenant John Newton. Now this year's Synchro 2 becomes next year's Synchro lead. The main section now are pulling up in an echelon formation of 7 aircraft, and the leader's on the left, and he's the first to roll away and underneath this shape, thereby starting off the manoeuvre that we call the twizzle. If the twizzle's been a good one, the man down at the back end, Martin Cliff, will give his seal of approval with his smoke-off call. At this stage, Synchro run back in towards each other again at cliff-top height, and as they cross, watch for the extremely uncomfortable negative G manoeuvre that will follow. Pushing up there with some minus 2.5 G. And as they come back down towards each other along the display line once again, this time they will cross and then roll the aircraft with some 360 degrees in 1 second. The closing speed at this stage is in excess of 700 miles an hour. The main section now pulling up, with Reds 4 and 5 in the stem there. Position's unusual for them, because remember 6 and 7 normally fly there. As they reach the top of this loop, 4 and 5 have moved into positions astern the numbers 2 and 3. This forms the shape that we call the Vixen, named after the famous Royal Navy fighter. But as they come to the bottom of this looping manoeuvre, wait for the 7 aircraft to fan out in 7 different directions with coloured smoke on. And this is the spectacular and ever popular Vixen break. But Synchro have one more manoeuvre before the end of the show. This then is their opposition loop. First, they've got to cross. Now 3 crosses in this manoeuvre, the first at the bottom, the second at the top, and then the third, once again, at the bottom of the loop. An ultimate part of the sequence involves all 9 aircraft reforming the Diamond 9 whilst flying the join-up loop. And this is flown in the formation that we call Amateur Diamond, with 6 and 7 on the wingtips on the outside and 4 and 5 in the middle behind the leader. And so we come to the final spectacular manoeuvre, the Parasol Rake.
Pressure.
We're riding now with red 9 on the outside left of the Vixen brake, and this will be at 7G. Here it is again from Tim Miller's aircraft. And now in the back seat of Red 7 as we come towards his synchro leader for the opposition loop. As we go over the top of this loop, watch for the white smoke left by Red 6. You're so close you can hear him. And of course, one more cross at the bottom. Now let's see that again, this time from Red 6's cockpit. That was John Newton fading into the background. Steve Johnson now looking over his shoulder to align himself with the runway of the display site. And we heard the third cross there. But now let's look backwards from the leader's aircraft as the aircraft rejoin him in the join-up loop. This time it's numbers 4 and 5 who fly immediately behind Tim Miller. As we come over the top, watch for the aircraft to fan out from a cockpit view. But the show isn't over until all 9 aircraft are safely on the ground and back on their chocks.
Well, that's as close as you or I will ever get to sitting in the hot seat of a Red Arrow, or indeed, rolling in the sky. You might like to know that Squadron Leader Andy Stewart, who is the team manager, flies the number 10 aircraft, which was used extensively in the making of this program.